Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Happiness by Habit. I am your host, Silvana Pimentel. Today, we have a very special guest, Alison Pickering. Alison is a multilingual professional, artist, intuitive, and teacher. She offers archetypal coaching and life strategy sessions. She's a founder of Follow Your Road Academy, a Western esoteric alternative school that provides a welcoming space for professional and business-minded individuals to explore spirituality, tarot, and Kabbalah, and other transformative topics. We will also dive into the fascinating realm of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and we'll discuss how understanding our internal language can help us reshape our thoughts, habits, and overall mindset. It's a pleasure to have you, Alison, here with us to
Thank
share
you.
your insights with us.
Thank you, Silvana. I appreciate the invitation to come and to talk with you and to have a chance to talk with your followers and to share a little bit about the work that you do and I do.
Wonderful. Let's jump right in. We have so many things to talk about. Let's talk about your background. How did that led you to create your Follow Your Road Academy?
Well, I had the great good fortune when the craziness of COVID kind of befell us and we went into lockdown. I had just retired from a career in education. I had worked almost 35 years in public education, doing all kinds of different jobs. And one of the jobs was in curriculum, which is designing instruction. And after retiring, I had a chance to join a small group of people who were studying tarot. And in fact, it was an old friend of mine, and he used to do live events, and he would get a bunch of readers together and they would just offer their interpretations at kind of a live event. And it was a lot of fun. And he wanted to figure out, could we do something like that on Zoom? And so we ended up creating a little community, and we have honestly met like twice or three times a week ever since. And so it's been a really beautiful thing. That learning opportunity was so priceless and so beautiful and so supportive. And we made good friends. And it was a really amazing way to learn important things. And each of us brought a kind of different, eclectic little approach to it, and our own prior experiences and our own interests and things like that. So it was a very authentic learning experience that wasn't very heavy on the reading, which was very nice because, I mean, I love books. I got a house full of books, wherever they are. I don't know. This is a small screen, but I got a lot of books behind me. And I've read most of those books, but it's a slog if you're doing it all by yourself. It's lovely when you're reading books with people. It's lovely when you're reading cards with people. And what I wanted to do, and what I am doing with the Follow Your Road Academy, is we're starting in the spring of 2025, and we're gathering together a core group of people who want to learn about esoteric topics, Kabbalah, spirituality in general, oracles, synchronicity, different things. We're going to have a core group of people. It's maybe going to be 15, 20 people, maybe fewer. I don't know. We'll see. And with the needs of those people, we're going to figure out, okay, what do we want to learn? Where do we want to start? What's going to be a good basis for all of us? And then how can we design this to be great for us as we are going through time together? And then with that, we'll be able to also create content that others can partake of. They can consume that content and learn from, whether they're in the live group or in a separate grouping or doing it on recorded sessions. But we want to have live sessions. And then ultimately, what I also plan to do is offer some travel opportunities so that we can have some in-person chances to get together. And I have some grand plans for like a thing in northern Italy to look at tarot origins and just to enjoy, ourselves over there, and maybe a cruise or something like that. So that's what I have in the works for the couple of years upcoming. And we have a little tarot talk show on YouTube that I would like to build into something larger that's in greater distribution. And I would like to, one of my important teachers in tarot is the author Marcus Katz, and he talks about restoring the spiritual dignity of tarot. And so I share that mission.
Wow. Oh my God. Fascinating.
So we'll see. Wish us well.
Very exciting. I'm sure it's going to be
I'm
amazing,
excited.
Alison. You're going to do amazing on that.
Thank you so
As
much.
everything else. You describe yourself as a multilingual professional, artist, and teacher. How do these different facets of your identity influence your approach to coaching and teaching?
Well, I think that everybody has many facets. I'm sure that you have many facets and many languages and many sides of you and many things of your experience. And all of those things they come into play when you're talking with people and when you're more importantly, when you're listening to someone. And in the coaching process, language is important, the kind of words people use, the feelings that they are showing you that they're feeling by their choice in words. And so I think that my language awareness is helpful. My background in kind of some therapeutic support, kind of lay therapeutic modalities, and also learned neuro-linguistic programming has been helpful to support people to shift their language. And so if I hear someone who's saying, I always have problems with this, I might say, well, is it possible that you always used to have problems with that? Might that, change? If you could just maybe shift it into the past tense when you catch yourself saying things like that, if you can shift it into the past tense, you can at least open up the possibility of it doesn't have to be always, And so sometimes I'll catch myself.
Can be so powerful.
And it requires kind of self-monitoring of the talk. But when you're listening to somebody, it's easy for you to do that on their behalf because you want the best for them and you want them to speak, proudly. When you see them speak in such a way that's kind of, when they start shrinking, you want to help, you want to help expand people and you want to help kind of uplift them and get them into their good posture and all that stuff.
Right. Oh my God, that's very interesting. Are there any other phrases that you have got people saying that maybe we can change to make a big difference?
Well, I'll tell you something that I would always tell new teachers. And so this thing, and by the way, the reason that this is a story for me is, here's the story. I was a teacher in the late 80s. Let's say the late 80s is when I started teaching, mid 80s, late 80s. And I was not very good because I was just thrown in there. They had an emergency credential program where they literally just needed warm bodies in the room. It was crazy. And so I'm in there and I'm learning on the job and I'm kind of a nice person, and the kids sense if you're a softie, and I had terrible classroom management. And I would have these little kindergartners and they would be playing teacher and they would be like, and I'm like, oh my God, that's me. They're doing me, So, right. I know, it was so embarrassing. And so I was like, I can't do this. I want to quit. And in the middle of the night, there was a Tony Robbins webinar, or not, it wasn't a webinar back then. It was an infomercial. This is back when it was only TV. There was no internet. It was just TV. And in the middle of the night, you had these commercials. And so Tony Robbins got on there on his infomercial, and he gave me 2 NLP techniques. And I swear to God, they changed my life. They changed my professional life. They made my whole life easier. And these are the 2 things. Firstly, the word don't is not well processed by the mind. So if you tell a kid or a person, anybody, but just especially children, so we'll talk in terms of, let's say, speaking to children. If you say, don't hit your sister, or don't slam the door, or don't run in the hallway, all they hear, it's just like if I said to you, Silvana, don't think of purple lipstick. Don't think of a yellow school bus. Don't think of, a red hat on Allison's head. Don't think of that. You can't help it. It's
right.
You can't help it because I've planted the seed. And so every time I said to kids, don't run in the hall. That's what they heard. Hit your sister, be selfish, whatever the thing was. And so what it forces you to do is it forces you to figure out what you do want. And that's hard. And so I had to figure out, treat each other kindly. If you need his attention, just a soft touch. Let's walk in the hall, So that was one thing. And surprise, surprise, it seems like nothing, but all of a sudden my life was 1,000 times better. And the kids were happy.
Wow.
They knew what I wanted now. Because they were only giving me what I said, but they gave it to me opposite. And then I had to come down on them. It's like, why did you do that? I don't know. Because you told me to. You told me not to. You told me to, So that really helped. And then, And then the other thing was not to threaten, just to figure out the opposite of the threat. So instead of, if you do that again, I'm going to call your mother or something, or if you're going to lose recess, well, it's a guarantee because all the kids really want is to know, are you for real or not? And they will risk a punishment to know that you're for real. And so unless you're willing to actually do the thing you threatened, you better not say it because you're going to have to do it. And so you have to figure out the opposite thing. So it'd be like, don't you want to go to recess? Yeah. Well, then what should you be doing? The rules. Yes, I knew you knew the rule, And so you're like, and it's so,
I love it.
It's such a tiny thing. And yet it makes such a world of difference in the same way in oneself. If you say, let's say, here's a question people often say, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Well, someplace inside you is going to provide some answer. And then all you're going to do is kind of spiral down. But if you can say, what's going well? What do I do well? What's right with me? I mean, if you just flip the question, you would come up with different answers, and you would have real, legitimate answers that are a different kind of direction of thinking. And so it's just kind of a question. And if you get into neuro-linguistic programming, they talk about big meta programs and the filters that we have and how much information we can pay attention to at any one given time and things like that. But some little tiny techniques, even without the whole thing, can be really helpful in your life. And those are two of them. So watch out for the words don't, and really avoid threatening as much as possible.
I love that. I'm definitely going to incorporate those two pieces of advice in my life for sure, especially with kids. It's so crucial.
With kids, with coworkers, with anybody who is around in your life. If you want to kind of get what you want, you have to tell them what you want, not what you don't want, because then you get what you don't want, you know?
Exactly.
Right.
That's because they don't process the word no. They process just what you are telling them, except that. Fascinating.
It's so bizarre, but
What
it's true, yeah.
It's true, so true. For the people who are not very familiar with NLP, can you please walk us through what it is and how it can be used in real life?
Sure. I will defer to experts in the audience because I am a student, and so I can tell you a little bit about what I know. There were two psychologists who worked together with Dr. Virginia Sater and Dr. Milton Erickson, and those were Grindler and Binder, or Grindler and Binder. I get them wrong. I could look it up right now, but that will take me off track. But they basically broke down how human psychology is very much connected to the language that we use internally. And the beliefs that we hold are expressed with language also. And so there is the idea that there are larger programs in our mind, for example, that we tend to move toward things. Like there are people who are very goal-oriented. They move toward things. Those are the kids in your classroom who will do anything for the sticker. They want the sticker. They want the prize. They want the certificate, right? But there are other kids who don't care about the sticker. It's not a motivator. But if you say that they're going to have a consequence, or you're going to call their parent, or some kind of punishment is going to happen, then they want to push away from that, and they will do that. And so it's an interesting way to kind of look at different personality types and see how to work with it. So for myself, I'm one of those people who I'm an away person. I tend to do things to avoid a problem rather than work toward a goal. I have to it's helpful for me to understand that about myself so that I can see some of my tendencies. There's another thing in neuro-linguistic programming, which is that the idea that we all have filters. And so it's very hard for us to either receive things in through the outside, through the filters, and see them accurately. And it also means that sometimes we project what we believe out and we see what we believe. And so it's a bit of a tricky mechanism that we have, is that there's a belief structure that filters both what we perceive as well as what we project, and it all becomes our own little movie and reality. So even though we are subject to larger like the fires in LA, nobody can stop the fires in LA with their mental powers, shall we say, you know, but we can change the way we respond. We can change the way we project. And I don't want to, so let me be so for anybody who might be seeing this podcast who has been affected by the fires, I have a number of friends who have lost everything. So I do not mean to diminish this at all. I was just giving an example of some of the larger forces that we have no control over that come over our lives. And so in that way, it's not about our filters at that point, but what is about our filters is how do we respond? How do we take what has happened? And there's a word that they use in neuro-linguistic programming, which is resourcefulness. And so the idea in neuro-linguistic programming is for us to get to a place where we are very resourceful in our thinking, resourceful in our language, and resourceful in how we're operating in life, so that we're always, so the idea is that we're not defeating ourselves, but we're rather finding the power and the potential in what we are talking about, or in what we're thinking about, and what we might be able to have happen within our realities, within within our zone of proximal development, you know, within our zone of power. What can we do, and to maximize our possibilities, and then also to really maximize our open eyes to really see what's out there, so that we're not completely just in our delusions. So at least there's a little bit of reality that's coming through. So the idea is fewer and fewer delusions as you go through life. I don't think we ever get it to zero, but
right. That's good. Oh yes, interesting. How do you integrate NLP techniques into your coaching sessions, Alison? And what do you find it so impactful?
I think that it's just very helpful to, again, that resourcefulness. So when you see someone being resourceful, it's very uplifting to hear them talk, because they're talking about things that have hope and that have some energy that moves forward. And then you may see them talk about, well, if I really had it together, if I really knew what I was doing or whatever, and you'll start seeing them kind of qualify what they're talking about. And it's just kind of, you can kind of observe and you say, okay, well, let's hold for a moment and let's see, well, how might we reframe? So, for example, even the NLP teacher, she's such a sweetheart, but she was having some difficulties with the Zoom. And I could tell that the technological stuff was very it made her nervous. And so I was like, and she said, oh, I'm not going to do it. She says, I'm impossible, or something like that. And I was like, let's reframe.
Reframe that.
And she had to laugh at herself. She had to laugh at herself, because she was like, yes, of course you're right. And so she caught herself and she says, I can do this. And she reframed right then.
And I will
and
do
she
this.
Concentrated, and she got the Zoom right, and she got it recorded the way she needed to, because she was doing this for her hours and she needed those hours. And so all of us in our areas of where we're less secure, we tend to, communicate that to people. Sometimes we're around people who don't want us to be our best, and we might talk ourselves down to what their level is just to feel the affinity with them. And then that's when you're maybe in not so good relationships, as if you're kind of lowering yourself to not threaten them, so that they're not going to feel bad or not going to do whatever, that can be another thing. So if you see somebody talking about a relationship, and then that relation in the sense, so they talk about this person, well, I can't do that because so-and-so wouldn't like it or something. Well, that's interesting. So you see that they're connecting what they can do with somebody else's approval. So let's talk about that. And so in NLP, they might have a thing where you either chunk down to get more detail, or you chunk up to get at motivations. So you might say, well, what is it that he doesn't like? And then you get a little detail. Well, he doesn't like that I have to drive at night when I'm alone. Okay, and what is it about that he doesn't like? Well, it's dangerous. Our car is bad, and he's afraid if it breaks down, I'm going to be in danger. Okay, well, that's kind of legit.
That's
so we've drilled down to
yes.
find out that maybe it's really about love, and that maybe you could find a different solution to make it possible for you to do that thing, But then if you chunk up and you say, well, why is that important to you? Well, because I really want him not to be mad at me. Why is that important to me? Well, when he gets mad, it's touch and go when he gets mad. Well, and let's chunk down again. When does that happen? Well, on the weekends, he likes to drink a little bit. And so on the weekends, it's a little, and so you start finding out more just by listening up, listening down, and you can start getting at what's going on to potentially help the person. Now, if the person is happy in the relationship, and they came to you because they need a solution for their, job situation or something, then you need to ask, is it okay if we talk about this? Or do you think that anything here might be affecting what's happening over here? See what they think. It's you're kind of probing. Some people, and sometimes you probe a little too far, and then people get very sensitive, or the wall goes down, and then you can't talk to them for a while. So it's about listening,
That's typically because you touch a critical point, right? And they don't want to go deeper.
Exactly. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Do you do coaching also? It sounds like you do.
Yes, I do. Yes. Very interesting. Alison, speaking of motivation and inspiration, are there any specific authors or thinkers that you are following that you would like to share with us that inspire you?
Well, thank you for asking. Well, let's see. Well, I mentioned before one of the authors who is also, he has a Tarot Professionals Association, and they have like a code of ethics, and he's developed a lot of things for people who work in the field. And his name is Marcus Katz, Katz, and he's from England, and he is very, very prolific. He's done a lot of different books as well as historical research. And in addition, there are some teachers who I have gone to their lectures and really appreciate their work and am greatly indebted to them. One of them is Dr. Stefan Heller, Hoeller. Dr. Heller is 94 maybe now years old, and he has been a bishop in the Gnostic, Gnostic, the Gnostic, not agnostic, but Gnostic church.
Okay.
Interesting. And it's a small esoteric church here in Los Angeles, and he is a scholar and a professor of comparative religions, and he has a wonderful perspective and a great sense of humor, and so I have enjoyed having his perspective both in religious services and when he does the homily, as well as when he does lectures on more philosophical topics. And then I have a colleague who I work with who has been very inspirational to me because he is so prodigious that he reads absolutely everything. And so if anybody comes on the tarot show with us, they have the chance to meet Kefri Scarabus, and he is quite the savant. And so through him, I've learned a lot of things because he'll be like, read this, read that, read the other thing. Or check this out, or look at this, and things like that. Who else? Let me look back here. Oh my gosh, there's so many wonderful people. I have for people who come on my little show, I'll get a little gift book and deck for them because it's economical and it's also a really good quality book. And that's called Guided Tarot by Stephanie Caponi. And that's on Amazon. And you get a lovely book and a nice deck, the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, for a very good price. And it comes in like 2 days to your house. And it's a lovely way to get started with tarot if that's something that is of interest to people. So that's a good way to get started in a reliable,
Yeah. So, Alison, can you tell us a little bit more about to the listeners how they can get in touch with you and what services are you offering currently?
Sure. So my website is on the thing right there. And so please get in touch with me there and get on the mailing list.
Yes.
I have a Facebook group that people are welcome to belong to where we just kind of share our thinking and share beautiful images. I offer tarot readings as well as what we call archetypal coaching. And so the archetypal coaching, Silvana, is something where if people want to use tarot as part of the coaching, I'm very happy to use it. It's not necessary, but many people enjoy getting periodic readings so that they can kind of compare the images over time. So we might do a few sessions without the tarot and then maybe a reading. And then we might go back and forth like that. Other ways to do the archetypal coaching are to consider framing the person's life in the hero's journey and what are the different signposts along the way within the hero's journey and where are they and what have been their different archetypes, what have been their challenges, what have been their very moony emotional periods, what have been periods where they've had a huge crash of new information. So you can use different signposts along the way as a way to kind of talk about the myth or the story of someone's life. So the archetypal coaching is something that we can do one-on-one, as are the readings. And then we're going to start the Esoteric Academy in March. And so if that's something of interest, please get in touch with me there. I also have an email. So you can get, the easiest way is through the website and letting me know what is of interest to you, and we will take it from there. So I appreciate the opportunity to share this information with your people, and I'm happy to. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's kind of the putting together of all the weird stuff that I've done in my life. And if I sang you a song in the middle of the reading, then it would be everything.
Love it.
Because back in the day, I used to be a singer.
Really?
So, we'll have to put it all together in the show or something.
You're a Pandora box, Alison.
I know, nothing but trouble. Nothing but trouble.
Ay, that's wonderful. Very nice, Alison. Quick question. You know, the topic or the title of this podcast is Happiness by Habit. So I would love for you to share some happy habits with the listeners?
I have a happy habit. This was something that was recommended from Dean Graziosi, who works with Tony Robbins. Maybe you've seen him.
Right?
And he
Yes,
talked
I
about
have.
setting 3 times a day on your phone an alarm to remind yourself of gratitude. And so I thought, well, 3 times is cool, but in Islam, they pray 5 times a day, so I can certainly do 5 times a day worth of gratitude. And so I have a little on my phone. It pops up a little gratitude alarm 5 times a day, convenient times during the day. And every time my husband and I kind of look at each other and we say gratitude, and then we go give each other a little kiss, and then we think about
Aw.
gratitude, and it's really nice. And so that's something that I can highly, highly recommend
That's
because it
beautiful.
reminds you that the most important things are the people, it's the inside feeling, and the feeling of appreciation for all we have. May we continue to have it. So many people are getting things stripped away from them. And in that way, where do you find gratitude? Well, we're still alive. We still have each other. We still have a breath to take. Being able to always find the way to say thank you, I think bueno, está uno lleno de gracia. It's about having grace in your life. To say grace, to say thank you.
That's right. I love you. Your Spanish is perfect, Alison, by the way.
Thank you.
Yes.
Perfect, no, but I have a good accent. Yeah.
You do have a good accent. I can tell you that. Thank you so much, Alison, for all your wisdom, for sharing your expertise and passion with us today. It's been fascinating to learn more about all the things that you do and how can we create profound personal and professional transformations. For our listeners interested in exploring these topics further, please make sure to follow your Road Academy and Alison on these websites that we're going to list here on the podcast. Thank you so much again, and keep it smiling and enjoying every day of your life with your happy habits. Until next time, thank you.